I now want to bring in our Steve Chaggaris, who joins us from CBS News' Washington Bureau, of course, a senior political editor. And, well, Steve, first, perhaps, if nothing else, to Major's comments earlier, actually, with us, in which he called this a rather brazen commercial caper masquerading, essentially, as a political event. What'd you make of what we just heard from Donald Trump?
Well, I definitely agree with part of that. This totally was an advertisement for his hotel. He started off his event talking about it, and as Major mentioned, he grabbed the pool camera and gave them a tour of the hotel afterwards. But I do think there was a strategy here, and the strategy was they knew that TV networks were going to cover this event wall to wall because they knew something was coming up about the birther issue. Trump had hinted at that for hours this morning on television and even last night. And so in the run-up to that anticipation, they decided to do an event that was, what, an hour long of not only selling his hotel, but having veterans come out and praise Donald Trump and tell the American people why Donald Trump should be president of the United States and how he's going to be great for the military and great for veterans. It was an opportunity to sell not only his hotel, but to sell his presidential campaign on cable, on television, because he knew he was going to have that airtime. And then 47 words at the end talking about the birther issue. So as much as we were promoting this event as Donald Trump will talk about the birther issue, it really was an opportunity, and they took the opportunity to really monopolize television time by talking about his hotel and talking about talking about his campaign. And again, this is also time that comments Hillary Clinton and President Obama, who had made negative comments about Trump on the birther issue, those clips were not being played during this entire time these veterans were out there speaking on behalf of Trump. So the longer the event, the more pro-Trump event is on television, and that's, in their mind, a win.
But, Steve,
yes?
Expedia and Orbitz and Hotels.com can also let us know everything we might need to know about a Trump hotel opening in Washington, D.C. What this did do as well was breathe new life into a debate that can rather categorically be proven to show Donald Trump on the wrong side of history. Essentially, that's what part of his 47-word statement acknowledged by putting this back on Hillary Clinton, then, when there is no supporting evidence to point to. Doesn't this, if nothing else, offer her about as nice a return to the trail as she possibly could have asked for?
Sure. I mean, it's not just this. It's the fact that he was asked the question and could not answer the question. That's the whole reason why we're even doing this today, is because Trump was asked the question, do you believe that President Obama was born in the United States? And he refused to answer the question. And so this is, again, we're getting back to the self-inflicted wounds from Donald Trump. We had gone about 3 weeks without him making these kinds of mistakes and really letting Hillary Clinton deal with her own problems and really turn the focus to her negative issues. Now this is back to old Trump. You know, this is him, self-inflicted wounds. This is now, we're talking about the worst things about Trump. The focus is on Trump's negatives. And Hillary Clinton's having a field day with this. You saw her today. I mean, if you didn't see an extra, or you didn't feel the extra spring in her step and the lilt in her voice talking about this, and the enthusiasm she had talking about this issue, knowing, I think, that this is not good for Donald Trump to be talking about these negative things so close to an election. This is what I think the last few weeks we thought Trump had gotten out of his system, but pretty clearly he has not gotten them out of his system, and we're now watching a wall-to-wall discussion of a Trump negative, which, you know, this is not good for him.
You refer to remarks she made today before the Black Women's Agenda Symposium in Washington, D.C., roughly a mile from where Donald Trump just spoke. I do want to play just a bit of those remarks again, and they came on the heels of a tweet that her campaign sent last night in which she referred to the birther debate as that regarding a racist movement. This is what Secretary Clinton had to say earlier this morning.
He has led the birther movement to delegitimize our first black president. His campaign was founded on this outrageous lie. There is no erasing it in history. Just yesterday, Trump again refused to say with his own words that the president was born in the United States. Now, Donald's advisors had the temerity to say he's doing the country a service by pushing these lies. No, he isn't. He is feeding into the worst impulses, the bigotry and bias that lurks in our country. Barack Obama was born in America, plain and simple, and Donald Trump owes him and the American people an apology.
Now, you mentioned earlier, Steve, the remarks that Donald Trump made to the Washington Post late Wednesday afternoon, and in fact, the remarks he didn't make in that same interview. We should mention those remarks by Secretary Clinton this morning came on the heels of a tweet she sent in which she called it a racist movement, but also on the heels of a release by Donald Trump's campaign, confirming that Donald Trump believed what he has now said that he believed, but without any direct attribution to the candidate himself. I wonder if you couldn't hear the eyes rolling in Trump campaign headquarters at long last.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yes, and here's what's interesting. You watch that Hillary Clinton clip, and you hear her voice. She sounds like she doesn't sound like she has pneumonia, right? Sounds like somebody who I think feels that she has now reclaimed the narrative, which she had lost, I think, over the last few weeks. We had been talking about emails and Clinton Foundation, and then her stumble last week at a fundraiser where she talked about half of Trump's supporters being in a bucket of deplorables, and then what we saw on Sunday with her health problems, stumbling into her van and then taking hours and hours to explain it's because she has pneumonia. She had completely lost control of the narrative. This has handed her on a silver platter control of the narrative again, and you can hear it in her voice. And you got to wonder if Trump's people, you mentioned the eyes rolling, you got to wonder if they realize that this is not necessarily going to be an opportunity for them to reclaim the narrative just by putting to bed the idea that he doesn't think that President Obama was not born in the United States. This is something that's going to be talked about for the next few days. These, again, are the kinds of things that Donald Trump had been doing regularly over the summer post-convention. Just these stories that seem that like they should be irrelevant, but then take on a life of their own and really do nothing to help him in terms of voter support. And so we'll see what happens. We've seen polls tighten on his behalf. We've seen him take the lead in some of these battleground states, thanks to what's happened to Hillary Clinton over the last few weeks. But I wonder if this is yet another turning point. And I'm anxious to see what the polls look like next week after all of this birther stuff.
Again, we should mention our Major Garrett called this, saying, let's call this for what it was. This was not a major appearance by a presidential candidate. It was a mere commercial caper for, if nothing else, numerical support. The great journalist for CBS News, Sopan Deb, has been covering the Trump campaign, can now confirm 270 words were said by Donald Trump at the top of the appearance today regarding his hotel. 67 in total were given with regard to the birtherism debate. I'm going to get you out of here then on this one, Steve. This has also then opened up a few more of Pandora's many boxes with regard to this issue, including something that our Major Garrett did refer to perhaps as prehistory, but the 2011 statement by Donald Trump himself saying, if a valid birth certificate is provided by President Obama that, if nothing else, makes me believe he was born in America, then I will release my tax returns. It would seem that half of that bargain has been met. What then of the other half?
We're still waiting, right? I mean, we've seen Hillary Clinton's tax returns. We've seen Tim Kaine's tax returns. We've seen Mike Pence's tax returns. We haven't seen Donald Trump's tax returns. Now, I understand that Trump says he's not going to release them because he has an audit going on, and his son has said this week that actually the real reason is because of how complicated his taxes are. But at the end of the day, this is a transparency issue that has been hanging over his head since he jumped in this race, and he continues to really ignore the issue. And I guess my question is, are we going to see this before November? It seems that at this point we're not going to. And now it's something that I think the Clinton folks and Democrats can hang over his head, and you're seeing it regularly. They're basically defending Hillary Clinton, saying she's been way more transparent about every single transparency issue than Donald Trump has, and really now laying it on his doorstep to say, it's your turn, Mr. Trump. Release your tax returns. Otherwise, we're just going to call you out for it.
Okay, but then we've seen his involvement in the birther movement, Steve. We've seen his obfuscation on the tax return front, at least to this point. We also saw him offer up a two-page summary of a recent physical on the Dr. Oz show with regard to his physical condition. You mentioned that word, transparency. How then to explain the Quinnipiac poll that shows Donald Trump 17 points ahead of Hillary Clinton with regard to issues of transparency?
I mean, I think the way you explain it is that Hillary Clinton has done a horrible job of defending herself on emails and on connections that might have happened between the State Department when she was Secretary of State and the Clinton Foundation. And she's clearly not making the case clearly to the American people about her side of the story. And people are just not buying what she's saying on that. And that is weighing much more heavily than Donald Trump not releasing his tax returns and all these other things that you just mentioned. So this is on her as well. And she, from the very beginning on the emails, has changed her story, has said different things, has been basically called a liar by the FBI director. And so she's got her own problems with transparency, as you noted in the poll, and a lot of that is on her doorstep.
Steve, you busy a week from Monday? 9 p.m. Eastern, specifically?
I'll be watching.
Yeah.
I think I'll be watching.
I think
Looking forward to that debate, as are, I'm sure, millions and millions of Americans.
You, me, and 100 million plus. I have to believe at this point. Again, Steve Chaggaris, CBS News senior political editor. As always, your insights are vital.
Thanks, Josh.